let's get started.
Fabulous. Okay. Yay. Well, Thank you everybody for coming in here today. And it's so wonderful to meet you all here. I'm going to treat you as if we are sitting around a table and we're just going to have this discussion all about how to make podcasting as inclusive as possible. And really kind of ask two separate questions. One of them is how to create an inclusive world with a podcast. And the other one is how to make podcasting equally as inclusive, because both of those, I feel those two conversations go hand in hand. And all of you that are in this panel are unbelievable. I think I had the blessing of like spending my entire day with y'all yesterday in my ears. So that was amazing. But before, I'm actually going to go ahead and start to introduce you, and then I will introduce myself a little bit later, just simply because I just find you all to be so incredibly inspiring. So I'm going to actually start with the littlest one of them all, Siona, who is here, and I see her over there. I mean, okay, so she's and also, mind you, we have two award-winning podcasters in this panel as we speak. She is 9. She loves reading books and knitting, playing with her brother, and many other 9-year-old things. Her show is all about mini minds with mega thoughts, and it is called Little Mind Chat. So give a little wave there, Miss Siona, so that we can see who you are over there. I'm so excited. We also have Dr. April Moreno, and her shows are Sisterhood of Limitless Living and then now Paused. I coined that word. Now, I didn't coin that word. Somebody that you know coined that word, Dr. April. Paused, COVID-19, public health policy and culture. And then you said you had another one. You told me you had 3. What's the third one? I didn't see what that one is.
The third one's connected to my consulting work in public health strategy. So that one's called Healthcare Strategy and Culture.
Oh, my goodness.
By the way, the pause actually has resumed.
Oh, really? Get out of town.
We're back.
Good for you. That's amazing. So Dr. April is a doctor of public health, promotion sciences with several years of experience working in chronic disease prevention, intervention, and chronic disease control. She has been an integrative wellness professional since 2017. She's also a survivor and thriver of autoimmune conditions, dedicated to helping women around the world to live their best possible lives despite life changes. So yes. And then we have Lily Wong, who I've had the pleasure of being in real life with. And I remember meeting each other at PodFest a few years back. Her show is Fly with Lily. She is a self-proclaimed nomad and has lived in over 20 countries and 60 cities. Oh my goodness gracious.
40,
in the past 2 years.
100 now.
Oh my God. She just keeps going. All the things. She began creating podcasts related to her travels and now has a huge following of avid listeners who listen daily. And she's also a podcasting mentor and coach that she started to do all of that stuff too as well. So welcome, Lily. Thank you so much for being here too.
Thank you.
I know. And then, oh my goodness, I have been obsessed listening to your show, Akeigo Okoye from African Business Stories. Oh my gosh. So I was so excited to see all the work that you've been doing. So she is a connector, a proud Nigerian, and a passionate Pan-Africanist. She is a dual qualified lawyer for English, England and Wales and Nigeria with over 15 years experience in multiple jurisdictions and sectors. Akeigo currently serves as Director of Member Relations in the Corporate Council of Africa in Washington, D.C., where she works to bring together U.S. and African governments, public and private sector players, and other nonprofit in order to enhance and deepen trade and investment between U.S. and Africa. I think she's got a lot of stuff on her plate. Thank you so much for being on the panel.
Thank you, Elsie. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And last but not least, I do have here the mighty Jen Amos. Yes, I am so glad to see you. Yay. And this is our second award-winning podcaster on this panel. She is a veteran spouse and online entrepreneur. She's a Filipino-American podcaster, and Jen actively seeks to find common ground through conversation and storytelling to foster community and collaboration. So as you can see from all of this, we have like this vast array of not only diversity in the sense of the way that we all look, but also the types of topics that we cover. And just to kind of add to the mix a little here, I was born in El Salvador. I am an immigrant from El Salvador. I am an almost 50-year-old mama, and I have been podcasting since 2006. So I've kind of grown with the medium and currently have produced over 1,000 episodes in all of the podcasts that I have produced collectively through all of these years. I currently co-host 2 shows, She Podcast and The Feed, and both of them about podcasting because it seems like I just can't stop. I'm also a huge advocate for impact-driven podcasters, which is all of y'all. So let's start to have a conversation within us and really start to hear a little bit of your journey. Siona, I'd like to start with you today. Lovely. And I have 2 questions for you. I'm just going to have every one of you, just to let everybody know, to kind of introduce your show and how you got started podcasting. And then I'm going to give you a little bit more of a specific question so that we can really start to hear from your own experience something about another multi-layered experience in what having an inclusive podcasting space is outside and inside. So, Siona, whatever possessed you to start a podcast?
Well, when I was living in the UK, I found out about podcasting and podcasts, and I listened to quite a few, but wasn't satisfied because it was only stories and science. It kind of started to get quite boring, so I wanted to podcast of my own.
That's amazing. That is so great. And your stories are absolutely riveting, the way that you dive into these conversations that are so in depth. I'm floored by the topics that you covered in your show. That said, did you find that, it was a little bit challenging to get started podcasting on your own? Like, given your age, was it a little bit harder for you to understand how the bits and pieces all fit together?
Well, my early challenges were that I couldn't afford to pay someone to edit my podcast for me. I waited nearly 8 months for my mom, who was then working to upskill into editing it for me.
Oh!
I faced problems with finding a quiet place to record, but my dad later got a studio built for me.
Oh my gosh. This is fantastic. Good for you. This is so great. I'm so glad. I know that, and we're going to come back and talk about, because I know that there's an initiative that you're really wanting to talk about. So we have to stop a little bit early so that you can let us know about your initiative that you have going on in India, because you're in India right now, correct?
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. I know. Look at this. This is so great. Moving on to Dr. April. Can you share a little bit about how you got started podcasting?
I got started podcasting because of you and Jessica.
Oh my God.
Facebook group. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you are hosting this panel today. I learned from zero through the She Podcast Facebook group how to start my podcast.
And you're the reason why we connected also, Elsie. This is the showcase of the podcast network is April because of you.
I love it. I love it so much. Oh my goodness.
Ladies are wonderful. And then in addition to that, the reason why I wanted to do podcasting was because of this kind of story of the illness journey of chronic illness, being diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and hearing the narrative for the most part that was quite like not uplifting. for the most part. A lot of the things I was hearing were like kind of doom and gloom. I would go to support groups and I would hear things like, oh, this is going to happen to you. I guarantee this is going to happen to you. Who does that? Right. And so just hearing kind of like the worst case scenarios all the time, I was just thinking, okay, I can't be the only one out there who is thinking about chronic illness from a different perspective and finding ways to embrace it, adapt to it, navigate it, and actually turn things around so that we can live well. So Sisterhood of Limitless Living began.
You know what? One of the things that was really intriguing to me was now that you said that you unpaused your pod that was paused, the COVID-19 one, right?
Yes.
I listened to your last episode, not at the last, when you pressed pause, right, on that one show. And something that was really evocative to me was how you mentioned that you were essentially doing it in a way as self-care, right? That it was a time to kind of look inside and really understand how you wanted to manage this whole podcasting thing, because at times it's a little bit challenging to podcast and keep podcasting. And in order for us to build an inclusive world in podcasting, we have to keep podcasting to do it. What made you choose to do that? And how did you now decide to unpause the pod?
I'm so glad you asked this question because there's like an understory to this. So I was working with a psychologist at the time, a therapist, and I found that I didn't stay with her long because I guess what happened was that she thought that my public health background and my like in-depth research in the pandemic is something like a fear response. In her opinion, she thought that wearing the mask was a fear thing, and she told me, who wants to listen to COVID anyway? And so having that conversation with her in combination with kind of just being exhausted from this new nonprofit I had started as well, just caused me to think, okay, maybe this should be the end of this podcast. But what's interesting is that as soon as I ended that podcast, I started receiving requests for speaking engagements about the pandemic. I started meeting really amazing women. One of our speakers is featured frequently on CNN to this day. Kristen Urquiza, she was one of our podcast hosts. And so I've had this opportunity to meet, and Anu as well, this opportunity to meet so many wonderful women, visible women around the world because of the COVID-19 Public Health Policy and Culture podcast. And so that kind of led me to turn it around and say, you know what? Maybe it is time to reconsider that. I've been able to manage all the other tasks with the nonprofit, the autoimmune health equity nonprofit, and all the other two podcasts because I love podcasting. And it was just this time to reconsider. And it's also a lesson. If any of you is dealing with a health condition and you speak to a specialist, a therapist, or anyone who kind of tells you something that doesn't feel right, that makes you feel like, you know what, they're kind of discounting what I believe to be true. Trust yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. April. I really appreciate that candid sharing because it's true, especially with the fact that we use our voices so strongly and put ourselves out there. Sometimes it is a energy drain, but at the same time, there is that communion that happens with our audiences that often gives us that juice to keep going. And it might also be podcasting can itself be self-care. So moving into Lily, thank you so much for showing up today. And so one of the curious things that I had for you is your ability to be able to powerfully use your voice and speak, at PodFest, to be able to do a keynote, to be able to continue to speak in a language that maybe perhaps is not the one that you were raised with or in, and that you continue to boldly and confidently speak in a language that's not your own. Because I know for me, I'm bilingual. I know how to speak Spanish, but every single time that I'm called to do like an entire session in Spanish, I am so scared. I feel there's a sense of shame sometimes that comes in that I'm not better at it or that I should know all these things. I can't imagine like how hard it would be when you put yourself out there, is how did you challenge yourself to continue to podcast and in a language that's not yours as well as your own?
Sometimes you probably need some alcohol to help with that. We all agree, right? When you're speaking a second language.
Children in the room.
That's hilarious.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, anyway, thank you, Elsie, for the wonderful introduction. See, I made a mistake there. But I'm just so grateful for your compassion and everything. I've been speaking English for a really, really long time, although I started when I was 12, but I'm just so in love with this language. I love the sound of it. And I started practicing when I was 20. And the more I speak it, the more I want to improve it. So this has always been a goal for me, to be international speaker, to be able to inspire people with my voice and with my stories and experiences. But while I was back when I was 20, I thought that I wanted to do that, but I had no stories. And then when you had that idea, the journey begins. And then you started to have many different influences. Yeah, so this has been a really, really amazing journey. I really in love with podcasting. I have right now have more than 20 podcasts, and then now 1,600 episodes. I don't know. It's just like I just been producing daily, and still traveling at the moment. I'm in not the city of my home, in a different city in Taiwan, and I'm just really grateful for this opportunity. Also brought me to Spain. It's also like Spanish is not my the language that I'm really fluent in, but I love just being able to travel and then get inspired, and then being able to share that story through podcasting with my audience, and see that they inspired by my stories and also grow. And now I'm in Taiwan, also inspire women with my stories, how I began podcasting and then producing their podcasts as well.
Oh, great.
So yeah, just like Dr. April just said, it's just like when you start putting yourself out there, you attract opportunities, and then the universe conspire with you, you know?
Yes.
So yeah.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
I love it. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, when I started out my podcast, I had mostly men audience.
Well, wow, look at that.
But now it has progressed into women audience, because I began to share more of my personal stories, and I found not so many men are into that. And then sometimes I have male audience would come up and then said, left a comment and said, please do not share too much of yourself, too much information. They would say like that, and I would be like, well, just switch the channel. This is probably not for you.
Oh, I guess that's good. Yeah, switch the channel. Take it out of your ears, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And now I get a chance to chat with you a little bit, Akego. It's so great to have you here. And I am really intrigued as to how or why did you start your podcast? I mean, I know the why. I actually know the why, because I did read your website, and I think that you're hitting, your why. But where did it come from? Like, how did you start with your show?
Yeah, thank you, Elsie.
Yeah.
I guess it's really from the work that I do, because we, like you said in my bio, I work for a nonprofit, Corporate Council on Africa, and in supporting trade and investment between the US and Africa, we host a lot of events and conferences and high-level meetings and all that kind of stuff. And in curating those events, we're constantly looking for panelists and people to speak. We set those panels up, and it always used to annoy me when, we put in all that work and then it's just a panel full of men, and I would be asking, where are the women? Who are the women? And in preparing for one of such events, I was doing some research and I came across some World Bank data that said that more women in Africa choose to be entrepreneurs than anywhere else in the world. Wow. And it stunned me. And I was like, where are these women? Like, I need to find them and I need to tell their stories. So that was my first motivation. I wasn't sure what platform I would use, what medium I would use. Mm-hmm. I just knew that I wanted to tell their stories and I wanted to tell it in a way that they could hear it, because, I say this all the time. There's nothing more empowering than seeing people who look like you succeed. And it's important that we that's the type of impact that I am looking at. Like, how do I create, a body of work that women and girls can look at and say, if she can do it, then I can do it too. If she can do it in the environment, because people feel the environment is a limitation, but there are people in those environments who are succeeding and thriving. And I wanted to tell those stories. Now, in choosing a medium, I said I was on a panel earlier and I was talking about how in Africa, at least in Nigeria and in some other countries, radio is a big is the biggest medium, even for marketing and communication, because not everyone can afford a television, but most people have a radio. And most people grew up listening to radio. So podcasts translate very well on the continent because people are used to listening to stuff and listening and doing other things. So in thinking about a medium that would work well on the continent, I listened to podcasts a lot. I thought, okay, maybe this is the medium I should try to use. And again, barrier to entry was so much lower than trying to travel across Africa and interview women. I mean, I would love to do that at some point, take my podcast on the road and go and visit all these great places. But for now, I couldn't do it. And I wanted to reach women across the continent. So podcasting was the perfect medium. And it's been fantastic. It's been absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
I think it is phenomenal that you're doing this work, and it really is inspiring beyond the continent, right? It's inspiring to all of us when we hear these voices of all of the vast amount of African women who are, or entrepreneurs, businesswomen who are doing it so well. But I'm intrigued about, did you find any challenges when it came to the infrastructure or access within trying to, even as simple as possibly booking calls with somebody or having the internet go down, or was that not a thing for when you worked with that?
Not as bad as I thought it would be.
Okay.
So it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I mean, people are very internet. I mean, internet penetration isn't as deep as we would like it on the continent. So I knew that starting off, but there are workarounds, like just giving clear instructions about what we're going to do.
Great.
And making it as simple as possible. So I record my podcast on Squadcast. So all they need to do is have a computer, make sure it's Chrome, and you click and you get on the site. So and just laying out the instructions clearly, doing a test. I always do, even if it's 5-10 minutes, just to make sure that they're comfortable on the platform. Booking isn't difficult. Things aren't as structured. Some people, if they're high level, you have to send a proper handwritten letter, but most people use WhatsApp. So getting in touch with people hasn't been as difficult as I thought. I mean, I had to cancel an interview last week because her internet went down and it didn't come back up. But that's the first time in a whole year that I had to do that. So that hasn't, definitely is, most people have like 3 or 4 modems in their house. Internet providers, they need to be online for business as well. So recording quality, I mean, I've had some issues because not everyone has, I'm not using my mic right now, but not everyone has a mic. And if it was here, you can send people a mic. So that has been a challenge. I think once I've had to re-record the entire interview. But like I said, it's been way better than I thought it would be when I started.
This is fabulous. It's so great. It's so good to hear because those are little tiny things that I know we are all struggling with. And we know the insight that I have in terms of podcasting on the daily is primarily within the United States. And even then, like I suffered from not having internet where I lived in my house. I did not have internet for 2 years. I had to use a hotspot with like horrific speeds because I literally did not have the infrastructure to bring internet to my home. So I feel like, oh my God, that's like, it's really dear to my heart to be able to address that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Jen, what's up, lady? So
hey, Elsie.
What's going on? So how did you get started with your podcast? Like what did you decide to do? Why a podcast for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am a huge fan of you, Elsie, and Jess for starting. Actually, I started podcasting in summer 2019 because I was new to the East Coast. I lived in the West Coast, California specifically for 20 years. And I moved out here essentially starting over. I was 30 and starting from scratch. Like, I left my business behind, my reputation, my friends, my family to venture out here with my husband and his business. And I think reflecting back on that time in summer 2019, I think I was just trying to find a new identity for myself outside of my husband. Not that, I was shoved under his shadow or anything. It's just I was trying to find something new. I was working with him at the time because that's the opportunity that I had. But I just had this itch in me to be independent again, because before him, I was a business owner for 5 to 6 years before I met him. And so anyway, I got into it to kind of like reinvent myself in a way, find something new, but also because I was lonely. I was starting new on the East Coast. I had no friends. We had moved twice already. And fortunately, where we currently live is the longest we've lived in a while. But I kind of came to this conclusion that like it was really hard to build local friends. And so the only way to maintain or to have some kind of friendship or connection was to do it online. Lucky for me, being an introvert, I found podcasting to be the greatest place to build friends. I very much enjoy that one-to-one or maybe 1 to 2, interaction. I prefer that more than being in big groups. And I'm glad that I had that first half of 2019 to practice podcasting. Actually, She Podcast was the first podcast conference I went to. I'm so glad I went to it because I think it was about like 4 months into me like getting into podcasting. And I just told myself when I heard about the event, like I have to be there, I have to be there. I have to see if this is something I'm going to run with. And so after your conference, Elsie, like I just knew I was all like, I'm going to do this full time. And so fast forward to today. Award-winning podcaster. In less than 2 years, I collectively have published like 400 episodes over four to five different podcast shows, and I've been featured in a couple. It's been great for a mental health perspective. I think that podcasting in 2019 really set me up for 2020 with all the craziness that came. It was so nice that it was normalized to do interviews over Zoom as opposed to meeting in person. That's one thing that I did not like pre-pandemic is like people felt compelled to meeting in person all the time. I was like, why can't we just do it virtually? And so like the pandemic really normalized doing everything virtually for me, which I absolutely love. And, again, like I said, it's great from a mental health perspective. It's also just been great for business. And my most favorite thing is just being able to exercise my voice just because I can. Podcasting is like the one medium out there that doesn't have a gatekeeper. So really the only person that's holding us back from getting our voice out there in regards to podcasting is ourselves. And so without any gatekeeper, there's really no excuse to not podcast. So that's a little bit about my background.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's in terms of like the power, one of the questions that came up for me while I was listening to your show is that, sometimes we often think that if we niche down or like if we get very specific about the things that we talk about on our shows, that we are somehow going to exclude too many people and our ability to grow. Right. Mm-hmm. Like if we just focus on this kind of people, well, what about those people? And what about these people? And what about, and so it becomes about everybody. Right. Mm-hmm. And you actually have really zeroed in on the folks that you want to focus on. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that niching down or moving more specific in the kind of content and the person that you're speaking to, has that hindered you in any way?
It's really empowered me because I think economically speaking, we can't serve everyone. If you think about like a financial standpoint, you literally cannot have the budget to help everyone, right? And also you don't want to help everyone because not everyone's going to want your help. Like, you know what I mean? And so when you really get specific, at least for me, it's like I first focused on what I needed. Like I needed, I really embrace being multifaceted. I have a podcast show for Filipino American women. I have a podcast show for military families because that's part of my background. I host a show for entrepreneurs because I'm also an entrepreneur. But each niche is so specific for a reason because it's like, different sides of me. Like I said, I'm very multifaceted, but being able to hone in on that is I feel like you don't have to think too much, if that makes sense. Like you simplify your work, you simplify the kind of questions that you're asking someone, and you could really hone in on the heart of like what you're trying to get out of that conversation or out of that story. I find that when you niche down enough, like there's so much to uncover. And so I think that's kind of my take on it, is like the importance of knowing that like economically it is difficult to try to serve everyone. But also you surprise yourself by how much depth you can find and how much treasure you can find in just niching down.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it's sometimes I just feel that especially with the inclusivity and wanting to diversify the voices out there and to share our world with each other. I have found so much inspiration by listening to shows that have absolutely zero to do with me, that I would have never listened because it's not of interest to me, and how it expands my understanding of the world as a whole. So I feel having that sort of the stories coming from each one of us has been so pivotal. Siona, bringing it back to you, I'm wondering did you have any trouble or did you find any challenge in speaking behind a microphone or letting just saying things and having conversations with sometimes folks bigger than you or more, they're grown-ups, and did you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this?
Well, actually, I kind of did before, because I used to be like shy and not shy. Shy because what are other people going to think about me? Are they going to think bad? Is my voice not? Actually, I said it directly to my mom that, Mom, I don't think I can actually do this. My voice is not good.
Oh. Yeah. So, but what did your mom say?
And my mom said, don't worry, it's great enough for a podcast. You don't have to mind about it. So what we did was, because I had the idea when we were in UK, what we did, we called some of my friends home and we just recorded a few sessions. So, yeah, so that's where,
yes, that's how you got it.
That's where I started picking up strength. And then finally, when I was ready to do podcasting, my mom, since she's older than me, even she did a few mock sessions with me. And then we went from people who I know to people who are out there who I got to know only after they came onto my podcast.
That's awesome. What a wonderful strategy. And that made you feel so comfortable doing all of that journey. Yeah, that was great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I would like to give a little advice to other younger people.
Okay. We're ready.
So as a young person like me who wants to start a podcast, and they are scared, to start a podcast because they're like, ooh, what are other people going to think to me? Ooh, how will I sound? Will it not come out good? Or will I not get any listens? Or will people think it's boring? And all those kind of typical worries.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is just think small, like it's only you, your mom, and your dad just going to listen to that podcast. And you just need to speak on the podcast like you would to a friend. You don't have to be perfect. And that's all. Mine's a little not our thoughts.
Oh my gosh. That's so good. It's like brilliant. It's like brilliant. Thank you so much, Siona. That's amazing that you just made us all go like, now next time I'm having a worry, I will absolutely put that. I will put that in my toolbox so that I get a chance to do that. Now, I know that I always said this, but you do have a little something that you wanted to talk about, and I'd love to give you the opportunity to do this. You are doing a campaign, I believe, right now in India that you want to seek people's attention towards something that you're working on. Go ahead and share about that.
Well, I'm not doing a campaign. It's actually an online petition.
Oh, all right. Sorry. Great.
So we are aiming at getting 1 lakh signatures so that we could actually convince a lot of those. We've targeted some of the Indian organizations which can deal with these plastic toys being harmful to our health and to the environment. So if we reach a lot of signatures, which is actually 1 lakh signatures, then we can say, hey, organizations, we need your help in saying that plastic toys are bad. We need your help to reduce population and plastic toys in India.
I guess this is very, very important, and I'm glad that you're doing this. Yeah, if you have a chance, maybe you can put the link in the chat in case you have it there, and then people can sign that petition, because that would be very helpful, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, another thing is, have you heard about BPA?
Yes, I do.
Well, they say, don't use BPA in products because it's a kind of phthalate. Well, long back, they started to protest to not use BPA in any plastic products like drinking bottles, packaging material, and stuff like that. So we go around looking for BPA free. So what these factories and people are doing, they are putting in another kind of chemical called BPS, which is even more harmful and has more instant effects than BPA. So they happily and put the BPA-free sticker on the product.
Oh.
So it's kind of harming us. And also a study showed that there are 419 chemicals, which 216 are harmful to us.
Oh, goodness. This is insane. Well,
yeah, and also in plastic toys. And in India, they are unregulated, and there can be 10 times the safe limit. If they say only two harmful chemicals, they'll put 20 harmful chemicals.
Oh, gosh. Well, I am super proud and so glad that you are addressing this right now, because you're definitely taking care of so many folks that need to pay attention to this. So thank you for doing the work. It's a great example for all of us to be able to find out all of this information. I do believe, Miss Anu, how much time do we have left? I just want to see we have
so the session ends at 6:15, and okay. If you guys want to stay on, and as soon as you leave, Elsie, then this whole thing will shut down. I've got another session right after. Yeah. No, as soon as you leave, so it's basically up to you. I'm gonna take Lily Wong with me. I think Christy, you might be coming too. I'm not sure. I have one more session to go to. So is it okay if I leave you all now?
Yes. And okay. Yes, for sure.
Thanks, Anu.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you.
I know.
Hold on a second.
I know, right? Thank you, Siona, for sharing that link there. I'd like to close it out here by making sure that you get an opportunity to share, just in the same way that Siona just did, about something that you really just would like us to know, either something that is going to affect the world and something that you're so passionate about, or possibly it can be as simple as, this is what I'm doing in my show, please follow me in these places, or something that really fills you, that you would like to know, especially those that are here listening to us, about this specific panel. Akiego, would you like to go ahead and take your, go ahead and start with this?
Okay, that I just wanted to say well done to Siona. That's absolutely amazing what you're doing, and you are quite an inspiration. And like I said in the chat, I will be getting my daughter to listen to your podcast, because it's something she wants to do. She's watched me do this, and she wants to do a podcast. So yeah, thank you for showing us that it's possible. Thank you. So for me, my podcast is African Business Stories, and my website is just that, africanbusinessstories.com. And you're welcome to follow, listen. In terms of if there's something that one could support, that I'm only just working with one of the ladies who is going to be a guest on my podcast. She runs it's like a micro lending that she does in Nigeria, and she trains women. I'll put the link to her business. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's real impact work. She's fighting poverty in Nigeria. So women who have no access to, they cannot access funding from banks. They cannot access. She takes them and she trains them, gives them skills, teaches them how to make hair, how to make soap, how to do different, and they're constantly looking for support. So as my suggested project, if anyone is interested, that is what I would say. But personally, you're welcome to listen to my podcast. It comes out every Tuesday, so we had one out today. I had an extra one yesterday for
International Women's Day. That was so good.
That's the one you listen to. So yes, every Tuesday we show up there. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Dr. April, do you have anything we'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I guess there's a few things I listed here. So, I have 3 podcasts, and they're somewhat different. They kind of overlap in some ways. Every so often, there's a theme that goes across all 3. So one is called The Sisterhood of Limitless Living. This is the multicultural podcast for autoimmune women thriving. So we just did a bilingual podcast for the first time this past week. It was in English and Spanish, and it's on the vaccine. The importance of getting the vaccine, because we saw in Latinx communities that there's a lot of people who are not comfortable, confident, trying to say at the same time, getting the vaccine. So we provided some more information on that. Just culturally, I am mixed. I'm Latina, I'm Asian, I have a Chinese mom, a Mexican dad. And so we are multicultural. So the other thing that we do is the COVID-19 Public Health Policy and Culture podcast. This is an international podcast. And if you know anybody, if you would like to share your story about living through this pandemic, it can be from any angle. It can be just like everyday living, what policy looks like. If you have a medical background, what that looks like. Sharing your stories, if it's technology, business, what the impact of this pandemic has been around the world. I would love to share your story. And then third, the other one is I would love your support. We are a 501c3, the Autoimmune Community Institute. We're dedicated to autoimmune health equity. So finding that getting an autoimmune diagnosis, going to support groups and events, finding that there is such a lack of diversity in these communities. There are parallel universes when it comes to speaking and building community around these disease groups. So together with all the different autoimmune conditions, there are over 80, lupus, MS, type 1 diabetes, and so on, working together and providing support across all the autoimmune diseases, across culture and language. So support us at acicommunity.org.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
And Lily, do you have something to share with us that we can support for you, or where to find you?
Thank you so much. My main podcast is Mandarin, unless you listen to Mandarin podcast. But I appreciate that support, that attention you have on me. And I just want to say that the podcasting is the best self-development tool that I ever had. I'm very obsessed with self-development. And since I podcast, just like so many dreams come true for me. And I have to say, just to the world, just be nice. You never know, you might meet a podcaster, and then she or he might amplify your voice, or your good deed or bad things out there. Yeah, everybody's a media out there, So just also be careful what you wish for as well.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Jen, do you have something to share with us?
Yeah, I want to share a quote that I have on my Instagram. Most of my socials is the Jen Amos, TheJenAmos. But this quote always stands out to me when I feel like I have to do like a closing thought or statement. And it's a quote by Alice Walker, and it goes, "The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any." And I think as women, we have been conditioned to ask for permission before we ask for forgiveness, right? I think about my husband, who's just always failing forward, and he doesn't stop unless someone tells him to. And he's really inspired me to just show up, and to just do things unapologetically. Although he's a different story. He obviously had the privilege to do that. But anyway, I share all this as a message to women that we have more power than we realize, right? And that's why we're all here today. And I think the beauty of podcasting is just being reminded that to just show up, because you don't know, someone can just look at you and already feel like they're seen, they're heard, they're validated, and just you showing up and sharing your story and being on the show. So I wanted to share that. That's been one of my favorite quotes that I feel like I keep coming back to when I have these types of speaking engagements. Secondly, you can just find me on my website, Jen Amos Creates, JenAmos, creates as in the verb CREATES.com. And there you'll see all my podcast shows. My main topics usually revolve around military families, women, entrepreneurs, and mental health. So if any of that stands out to you, feel free to reach out to me. It's just so great to see all of you. Thank you everyone for just making yourself visible and for continuing to be a mover and shaker in the podcasting community. It's been an honor to be here.
Thank you. And you all have been so incredible. Thank you so much for honoring us with your time. And, for me, podcasting is one of the biggest tools for self-transformation that there is. You see an array of ways in which podcasting is being used and is right now being embodied by these women on this panel. One of the ways in which I'm a really huge advocate of using podcasting is also to it really is to remove any ideas of who you might be in the world and to use it as a tool for you to grow bigger. I started without any kind of knowledge about the audio medium whatsoever. I didn't know what I was getting to. I was very afraid of tech. I didn't know how things fit together. And just because I had a sheer passion for the medium, I started with an industry that was really at its infancy and have been able to, without any training, without any bona fides, without any master's degrees, I have one, but not on podcasting, to be able to now be in a position of expertise and be known as an industry leader simply because I have put my hands in it. I have been passionate about it, and we can build a skill set to speak our minds, our ability to speak from a place of truth and strength as women. I think it's such a wonderful thing to have this in front of you sometimes, because it serves like training wheels. I like to see it like, whenever you have to have those hard conversations in real life. For me personally, having a mic in front of me has given me the ability to show up in my real life and be able to have the words to say when it really matters in interpersonal communications, not so much from one to many, but from one-on-one with those that really, truly are important in your lives. You can find me almost as the Elsie Escobar and almost anywhere, and follow us over at She Podcast, shepodcast.com. We have a massive community of women podcasters, and we are pushing to have our live event 2021 in Arizona this year in October, mid-October. So hopefully all things will be a go by that time. And you can find information on that at shepodcasts.live. And we are keeping it small and succinct so that we can have a time, and it's not going to be a huge event. We actually made it deliberately smaller so that we can have appropriate protocols for everybody, because as you know, we as women run the world, including our homes, and we want to keep everybody safe and healthy. So thank you so much, everybody. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you so much again for showing up today.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
To meet you all.
have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
You all.